35.
Let's bump that. We're going to go to 55. Okay. And you're going to come in, and I'll have you guys make way to the blue chairs over there. Okay, come on in. Tap. There you go. Good. Hold right there. Good. Excellent. But he became reactive. Yep. Good. He became reactive because he's reactive. Yep. Now relax. Good. All right. So Tina will get in touch. You're good. So reactivity.
Yeah.
And then you did previous training with sit means sit. Okay. Fill me in.
So he's got leash aggression for other dogs. Like anytime he sees another dog, he'll get staring like that.
Yeah.
And then as he gets closer, he'll start barking.
Okay.
Aggressive.
Okay.
He's fine off the leash.
Okay.
He plays with other dogs off his leash.
Yep.
Dog bark, fine. But anytime he's on his leash, he's aggressive.
Okay. Is this at a distance? Is it when they're in his personal space?
As soon as he can see him.
Okay.
As soon as he can see him, he starts that deep stare.
Sure.
And then as you get closer, he'll do the crouch.
Uh-huh.
And then the
Okay. What's the proximity when you'll see him start to trigger?
It depends.
It depends on the other dog, too.
Okay, sure.
If the other dog stops and stares at him, it's on.
Bigger energy, yeah. Staring, yep.
It used to be when it was only one dog,
Uh-huh.
he'd be barking from here. We've been in Chicago, because we used to have a lot of land. Now we're in the city.
Okay.
Walking. There's more dogs around, so it's a lot less now.
Okay.
But it's still enough that it's rah, rah, rah.
Sure.
And he scares people with dogs.
Will he keep with it, or does he like bark and then let it go?
He'll keep with it.
Okay.
He will respond if I make him sit.
Yeah.
Did you do sit means sit to fix the problem, or was this previous training and then in time the problem came up later? Okay.
We got him, he was a year old as a rescue.
Okay.
And so he needed training. But then we noticed reactivity started in probably about a year. And then after sit and sit, he was great. We worked with another behavioral trainer. He did well and he goes back. And sit means sit didn't want to have us. We were starting group classes. He was fine. But then he started being more reactive during the group classes.
I see.
And he told me I had the muzzle. And I didn't want to use the muzzle.
Okay.
So we stopped going when COVID happened.
Oh, sure. Okay. So then fast forward, things open up again, and then has there been any more training done, or? Okay. So you've kind of just been dealing with it.
Yeah.
Okay. What number does he respond to on the sit means sit collar?
So like just normal walking around, we can do very low. I can get to sit. And a lot of times I see another dog, I make him sit in the corner, and the dog passes.
Uh-huh.
That's actually been very helpful. It actually works really well because he knows I've got him in that. And he's just like that. If I need to get him off, if he somehow got loose from me, I will do the side button, which will be really zap him.
The continuous?
Yes.
Okay.
And because we get him off leash. Usually don't need that. Usually he responds pretty well, but I just crank it up more if he's really focused.
Okay.
So I rarely use this one.
Okay.
I haven't used this since he's been here.
Have you ever had it where he's reactive and that won't settle him down?
Yeah, used to. Now it usually settles him down.
Okay.
I
What?
think. I mean, sometimes it's slow
I
barking.
don't think so. I think it's more, we probably just had it in the wrong setting.
Yeah.
I think people will react to that.
Because there's Nick continuous and I think either tone or vibrate on that particular model.
There's a vibrate.
Yeah, it's vibrate. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Any reason why? I mean, obviously now, but it's been at least a couple of years since things opened up again for the delay in trying to readdress.
We're living in the city and we need to address it. It's municipal.
Okay. When did you move to the city?
January.
Okay, so fairly recent. Was it the sit means sit over here in the city, or is there another one over by you?
It's in Virginia.
Yeah.
In Virginia, okay. Because there's one here too.
Okay.
It's on the north side. They switched owners now.
Okay.
So I'll talk about that too. Anything else with Axel here that needs to be addressed?
That's his biggest thing.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay, and he has all the commands? Sit, stay down, come place heel?
He knows sit, he knows heel. He'll do down with a treat.
Okay. He doesn't know down with the collar?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
No.
What are your goals for the training?
To be able to walk, I want to be able to really have him enjoy the summer and for us to enjoy the summer.
Yeah.
Be able to walk past another dog without any of us freaking out.
Uh-huh.
And be able to go sit at a restaurant
Okay,
and have him not,
figure out.
yes, into the table, go after the dog.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, like, where we live now, we're right on Dearborn in Gold Coast area. I mean, there's tons of little dogs. And the way we live in a carriage house behind a building. So you walk through a hallway, and you can tell he starts anticipating dogs walking by.
Oh, sure.
And he gets,
Yeah.
and then as soon as he sees one,
Okay.
just outside of our gate.
Uh-huh.
And then I yank him back and hold him, but I mean, he's just like
Yeah.
ready to go.
Oh, yeah. I've seen this a million times.
Yeah,
Very good impression. Anything else?
I think that's mainly it.
that's the main
I mean, main thing is aggression.
Okay. How'd you find us?
Google.
Google? Okay, just a little search. Are you guys in the area or?
Yeah, Gold Coast, yeah.
Okay, sure. So you're just east, a little bit north of us. I gotcha. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. So I have a few things to note here, and then I'll talk about the process, make sure we understand proper conditioning, and then what your options would be. And then from there, you can just kind of mull it over. Okay. And I've been doing this for 15 years. My niche is reactivity and aggression. It's why I got into dog training, whereas most dog trainers like dogs and they like training dogs. And then in time, they might take on these cases because it's just more money, right? Whereas my specialty is aggression, human aggression, dog aggression, leash reactivity, all that stuff. Okay, it's like how I built my career. One of the most common things that we see is dogs are not conditioned correctly. And then two, the dogs are fitted with incorrect collars. Okay, and I'll explain all that stuff too. So like this prong collar, I don't like any kind of modified collar because it takes away from the prongs. Okay, do yours have flat tips or rubber tips at all, or is it just a regular?
It's just a regular.
Regular? Okay. So one of the things is that strap, that Velcro strap, doesn't allow for fluidity with the prong collar. Okay. I'll show you. Yeah. But I'll show you so you can see what I mean. And honestly, I would hold off on purchasing a new prong collar because chances are you're not even going to need it anymore. Okay. So here, but they do work really well, and if you'd like to have it, you're welcome to. This, of course, is not the size I'd recommend for him. But here, with the regular chain, you see that's why I call fluidity, right? Is that when we go to correct the dog with the prong, with any kind of modified collar, there's even collars that have like your buckle there, right? They have it in the middle. And what happens is it takes away two more prongs, so there's less prongs, so there's less what we call bite, okay? Same thing here, without that fluidity, whoops, tangled up there. Without that fluidity, we don't have the biting motion. Do you know why this is designed this way? It's meant to mimic a dog bite, okay? So that's why it looks like teeth. When you look at it, people go like, oh, like that looks like a medieval torture device. And I go, no, it's meant to mimic a dog bite, right? Because that's how they communicate. So that's the main thing that I always see with these collars. Again, I would hold off on that if you move forward with training because chances are you won't even need it anymore, okay? I do almost everything on the remote collar, okay? For the larger breeds, there will be moments where the prong collar is helpful in the beginning while you're training. So let's say you turn the corner and you see a dog, that's one of the hardest things to address. It takes the longest to address. We can address it. It'll just take longer because we can't plan for those things, right? You just turn the corner or the elevator's door opens up and you can't plan for a dog being in there. It's really the surprise that catches the dog off guard. So then the owner with the prong collar has that immediacy, right, in terms of control because it gives us more leverage. And a lot of trainers refer to it as what we call power steering on a dog. And whereas the e-collar is the main tool that's going to stop and deter the behavior. Okay, so like I had a client, she lived in Bucktown, which is a very busy part of Chicago, a lot of people with dogs. And she had a 140-ish pound Great Dane, and she was probably like 100 pounds herself. Okay, so dog was like one and a half times her size. So she did prong collar with e-collar because there was times where she'd turn a corner and her dog would blow up. So she needed the prong collar to contain the dog while the e-collar was teaching the dog not to do the behavior. Does that make sense? Otherwise, I would say like 98% of the time, we just train with remote collar. Every now and then I'll tell the owner, I recommend you get a prong collar as well. It's usually for these very large breeds, okay? So that's one thing. The second thing is your remote collar, okay? It has like, I think 7 levels. There might be a low, medium, high setting. So then technically you have 21, right? Those collars are meant for like a 35-pound dog and under, okay? This is the most very common thing that I see is a lot of trainers, and Sit Means Sit's a franchise. And the way it works is it's like 50 or 80 grand.
Can you look around? Can I-
No, pull them in.
Come on. Okay.
Axel,
No, that's like 30, 20.
Yeah. And what I'm gonna have you do is shorten your leash. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna pull them in front of you. And you're gonna pull up on your prong and you're gonna press down in his hindquarters, just like that. You're not gonna say sit, we're not gonna praise. But every time he gets up, you're gonna repeat that process, okay? So Sit Means Sit's a franchise. You pay 50 to 80 grand. And they send you a DVD. You go off to like a 2-week school. And then you come back and then you start your Sit Means Sit business. And they do they sell their own brand of collar, right? It's not a good franchise, okay? Because it took me at least 2 years and a 3-month internship to learn, to even get a foundation of dog behavior, right? And I did a lot of studying on my own. The conditioning a lot of times is incorrect. You can't really learn, especially that, in 2 weeks. Like it takes a few months to get it down. So I get a lot of clients from Sit Means Sit, like the one that's here in the city of Chicago. Most common thing that I see is the dogs are not conditioned correctly, okay? The reason why that's important is if the dog does not understand how to turn off the collar, they don't understand what it's trying to communicate, right? So if I get a dog and I'll get owners that are like, I'm correcting the dog with the e-collar, and they'll either continue doing what they're doing or they'll escalate and get worse. And I go, that tells me they don't know what you're trying to tell them, okay? And that all has to do with conditioning. When a dog feels the collar, they should think to themselves, how do I turn this off, right? And if they know how to turn it off, then they know how to alter their decision. Does that make sense? So let's say you guys have a car. Let's say you park in front of your home and you wake up in the morning and there's a ticket, okay? And you read the ticket and there's no explanation, okay? And the next day you wake up again and you have another ticket and you look at it and there's no explanation. And it just continues to happen. How are you gonna feel?
Well, I know that feeling.
Yeah, you know that feeling. Yeah.
Ticket, too.
But it's a parking ticket, right? You know it's because of parking, whether the meter expired, you parked in the no parking zone,
Yeah.
you know how to avoid it, right? So you may not like it, but you know how to avoid it, right? But if there's no reasoning there, you are gonna contest and you're gonna go, hey, why are these tickets happening? There's no reason here. Here are the tickets, right? Same thing for the dog. If we're correcting a dog and trying to give him a ticket up and then down in the butt, he needs to understand why it's happening so that he can avoid it in the future. Does that make sense? So like City of Chicago, meter parking, there's times where I'm like, I'm gonna run into this post office, it's gonna take me 30 seconds, and I'm gonna run back out, right? And I'll come out, and maybe it took me 5 minutes because of the line or whatever, and I get a ticket. And I'm like, I should have just paid the $2, right, for the 5 minutes or whatever, so then I can avoid this $50 ticket. Does that make sense? So here, same thing for the dog. We want to make sure that the dog is conditioned correctly. And I already know there's a few franchises. I think there's about 3 in the States. So when I hear their names, I already know right away this is one thing that needs to be done. Is reconditioning and upgrade up and down. Yep, very good. Upgrade the collar. Okay. So the reason why that's important is, yep, very good. I've had dogs override the collars due to stress. So we always have to factor in a few things. I factor in the size of the dog. Does the dog have any behavioral issues, anxiety, fear, nervousness, defensiveness, aggression? How long is the dog's coat? Is it like a Samoyed? Is it a German Shepherd? Is it a Pitty, right? What's the dog's weight size? Is it a 90-pound dog, a 100-pound dog, 150-pound dog, a 20-pound dog? Like all these things are things that I look at when I'm assessing a case, okay? So I always suggest that you get the collar that's appropriate to the dog, because if you don't, there's gonna be times where you're gonna try to correct them and it's not gonna do anything, okay? Question on any of that stuff. So one of the first things that we do or that we reteach is heal, okay? Heal is the foundation for everything that we do, whether it's behavioral and or obedience, okay? Reason is, especially in the city of Chicago, most people walk their dogs 3 times a day, 7 days a week, because most people don't have yards, right? So it's 3 times a day, 7 days a week that we're practicing this healing exercise. Does that make sense? The reason why we use the heel to condition the collar is 1, because of that. 2, it's non-confrontational, okay? Most of the time when people apply the collar, like I'll get clients that are already self-training their dog, and the dog will be reactive, and they'll go like, no, and they'll like blast the dog, and the dog like freaks out, and I'm like, your dog doesn't know what you're trying to do here, but also you're adding in energy and confrontation, right? No, and the energy is what creates the baggage with the collar, also because it's not being conditioned correctly. Does that make sense? So here, when we correct dogs, it's completely non-emotional. I'm completely neutral. I let the collar do everything for me, okay? I like to refer to the collar as a bite on the button. When conditioned correctly, it comes across similar to a dog bite because it's just a contraction of the neck. And we're communicating with the dog in a language that they already understand, right? So like that prong collar is a great tool because it mimics a dog bite. The problem is, I get a lot of dogs that are reactive, and the owner's like, I have my dog on a prong collar. When I try to correct them for the reactivity, it does nothing. I go, right, because your dog's at a 12, and the harshest correction you can give on a prong collar is a 10. So you're not meeting your dog where they're at. Does that make sense? With remote collar, it doesn't matter. With the collar that we use, we have 127 respective levels. Okay, you have 21. So we have 101 more, or 106 more, sorry, math, right? It doesn't mean we have more power, well, we do with output, but it means we have more variance. Does that make sense? So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, have you ever felt it? It's a pretty big jump, right? When you feel ours, or the ones that I recommend, it's so subtle up on the collar, down on the butt. It's so subtle, you won't even feel the difference, okay? But what it allows us to do, so with these models, I get cases where the dog's ignoring 5, but then yelping at 6. So then there's like, what do I do? My dog ignores 5, but then when I correct them at 6, they're like yelping all the time because it's too much. I go, right, that's why we want variance, okay? So I want the collar low enough that I can correct the dog and not get vocalization ideally, but high enough up and then down that the dog respects it, okay? So when it comes to behavior, we want to stop and then deter. We don't want to manage it all the time. You want to walk your dog and then go, I don't have to worry about anything. And there's no such thing as perfect. Let's say you get 5 reactive moments a day, right? And you do training. And then 6 months go by and you get 1 reactive moment. That makes sense because you can't account for everything. Sometimes there's off-leash dogs, even in the city. I've seen people walk their dogs off-leash in the big streets. And it's like, why would you do that? Your dog could walk into the street, right? At the parks, all that stuff is you can't account for life. Like that stuff happens, right? Question on any of that stuff. So here, with the healing exercise, almost the most common things that we deal with are leash pulling and leash reactivity. Okay, so that's why we always cover that first. You'd be surprised how many times I talk to clients and they go, heel was never covered, or it was the last thing that we covered, because most people don't know how to teach it, okay? Or they'll tell you it's not realistic to expect your dog to heel in life. And it's because they're envisioning a different kind of heel. They're envisioning, have you ever seen the competition? Yeah. Right? That's what they're envisioning, right? That's not realistic. That's inside the obedience ring. We want just, I'm walking with my dog heel, right? I don't need him staring at you, but he's gonna learn, I'm focused on you mentally, so I make the dog more concerned about you than he's concerned about the environment. Does that make sense? So that's how he keeps himself in check. He has to have a reference point. And he's going, that's Maverick. Hey, Corey.
You want me to talk Maverick?
Yeah, that's Maverick. Yeah, to correct him. Yeah. I already know who it is because he's a board and train right now, and he doesn't like doing place work. It's a part of the way we run things here. Yeah, a lot of trainers avoid heel because they don't understand how to teach it realistically speaking. Does that make sense? Whereas for us, it's the first thing that we teach. In my opinion, any trainer that knows what they're doing will teach heel first. It is the foundation for everything. So even if a client goes, I just need recall, Jesse, I go, I know you do, but you still have to do heel. It's required for everything else. Does that make sense? The other part of it is that as a human, you know the laws of the world for the most part, right? Don't run red lights, stop at stop signs, don't rob a bank, right? Don't hurt anybody. Like, we just know these things. Dogs don't. So one day, if you correct Axel here for reactivity, he goes, okay, today, in this moment, reactivity wasn't allowed. And then the next day or 10 minutes later, he sees another dog. He's like, but what about that dog? Does that make sense? So that's why I say, we talk about stopping and then deterring. When you have the correct, what we call working number, it will stop and then deter. And that's how we start to create more space. Most people tend to operate too low on the collar, so they're also finding themselves going low to high, low to high. They're kind of just drastically increasing it because it's what's called low-level e-collar training. It's a very common methodology. I don't think Sit Means Sit uses that method because it requires a different kind of remote system. But they'll be like out of 100 levels on level 8, which is super subtle. And then they'll go, but I'm always at 80 correcting my dog for reactivity and it doesn't go anywhere. I go, right, because the dog's not even respecting the obedience because you're at 8. So if the dog's not going to respect the obedience, what makes you think the dog's going to respect the behavior? Does that make sense? Yeah. So we need them to respect everything all around, okay? And it doesn't, again, we're as low as possible, but it's what I call high as needed, right? Low enough that I don't get vocalization, but high enough that the dog respects it and goes, I don't want that to happen again. So what happens if I don't bark at a dog? Nothing happens. The dog goes, oh, I didn't bark this time, nothing happened. And I barked last time, something happened. Let me bark again. Correction, oh, it happened again. So if I don't bark at dogs, nothing happens, I can avoid that number. Does that make sense? Questions on that?
No, we use this collar, so lots of when he's focused, we use, you tell him he's really responding because he does this little neck thing, and he'll sit and respond. Now when he gets really focused, I have to turn it up. So
That's what I'm talking about, low to high.
Yeah, we never have to go to usually level
Up and down?
the third level here. We usually
Right.
focus again on the first, and we're fine, unless, we'll turn up, there's a lot of dogs around.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, like you're going low to high. Whereas I want consistency, right? I want, once we find the correct level, you're like, hey Jesse, ever since we've been using X number, I've not had to touch that in like 3 months, and I've seen 100 dogs. I go, yeah, that's how that's supposed to work, okay? But that's why the heel exercises, the ritual of heel is so important because it keeps structure in the brain, right? Because a lot of people ask like, when does my dog learn to be a good dog? Right? And I go, your dog's being a good dog because you're doing a good job about reinforcing everything. Does that make sense? So like right now, when you first came in with Axel, what was his energy like?
He was pulling.
Yeah, he was all over the place. He was anxious, right? He's still anxious.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. So here, and I said, you're just gonna do this little thing here, right? And he laid down a moment ago, and you could see him going on his haunches there, right? So his brain is moving. It wants to do something, but you're telling him you can't do anything. So eventually, and the yawning and stuff is frustration because he wants to do something, but you're saying you're unable to. And eventually he's going to lay down again. A few minutes are going to pass. He's going to get up again. You're going to repeat that process. And by the end of the consult, he'll probably be laying for like 10 to 15 minutes straight because you're telling him right now we're not doing anything. So the other part of this problem is we tend to give little guidance to dogs, right? Like in the home, dogs typically do whatever they want all day. And we typically only want to apply control on the walks, right? If we go to like a PetSmart or whatever, again, it's like just let your dog do whatever. So the dog goes, I do what I want, when I want, how I want, wherever I want, and 99% of the time. And you want me to listen to you this 1%. See how that works? And then right away I told you, get your dog under control.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So that's why like here today, other than Maverick, but he was corrected, we have probably about 30 dogs boarding. During the week, we have 50 to 70. It's just as quiet, okay? Dogs still bark. It's just not 30 dogs barking. Across the street, it's like 50 dogs barking. You can just hear it all day. Our neighbor here, if you ever take the CTA, the security dogs that you see that go on the CTA are housed here at the end of the day. Okay, they have like 80 dogs. Well-trained dogs, still chaotic, still a lot of barking, because that's the difference of training and behavior. Think of training as obedience as education, sit, stay, come, math, English, science. Think of behavior as morality. Don't jump, don't bark, don't bite, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, right? A very smart person doesn't necessarily mean they're a good person. And a not so smart person could be the greatest person, the nicest person. They don't relate. Does that make sense? Same thing for dogs. I've had dogs that were very well trained, had a lot of obedience, had a lot of tricks up their sleeves. Terrible on leash, terrible behaviorally, because they don't relate. Right? So even though those dogs are well trained, and they're, because a lot of people are like, why is it so loud over there if they're trained? I'm like, because behavior is a separate thing. I do both. I do training and behavior, but behavior always is a part of training because sometimes like your dog's anxious, right? It's an anxious energy type. So let's say we're training him, we're most likely going to see his anxiety spike. because he's going under stress. We have to work through that anxiety in order to get from point A to point B. Does that make sense? Whereas a lot of trainers don't know how to work with the anxiety or work through it. They try to work around it, so it always stays there. I always tell clients, like, the behaviors that you're seeing are the symptoms of the root problem. They're not the problem. So like reactivity isn't the problem. It's the symptom of a problem. Does that make sense? His anxiety can be part of it. And this might just be because he's outside or because, there's a little bit, it's not too bad, because he is settling, what we call overstimulation. Are you familiar with this term?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Do you know can you define it? Oh, it's okay. Overstimulation is the brain's inability to turn off. It's constantly going. It's like when you came in and you sat down, right? That's overstimulation. Low level, because as you're addressing him, he is settling down. I get dogs where it's literally every 2 seconds the owner's doing this. That's that level, right? Humans nowadays, because of cell phones and social media, you have constant stimulation, right? You know how many times I see my employees like checking their phone, like, put your phone away. But it's so in them. I see signs of overstimulation now even with humans, you know, because of technology and TV and movies and the rate, like there's constantly always stuff going on, right? Same thing for the dog. So when we do conditioning correctly and you teach him how to focus, in order for him to focus, he has to turn off, right? Dogs can be up and down, can be excited to a degree while learning, but it doesn't really facilitate learning. Like kids, when they go to school, they're not running around playing as they're teaching. They have to sit down, calm down to focus. Does that make sense? So once he learns how to turn off and be calmer, he goes, oh, I don't always have to be up here. Does that make sense? Questions about that so far? So yeah, so this is the difference between behavior and obedience. A lot of times people come to me looking for obedience and I go, the problem is behavior. Obviously you guys know, right? But because you said the reactivity and stuff. But a lot of other people aren't aware, you know, like even trainers, like I'll get clients that go like, you know, my dog used to bite people or my dog bites people. My trainer told me to put my dog on climb or whatever when people come over, but my dog broke climb and then like bit the person. I go, yeah, because those are not related. Does that make sense? We have to correct the human aggression in order to teach dog, you don't do that, okay? So right now with what you're doing, what do you think you're communicating to Axel?
Calm down, sit down, we're staying here.
Right, relax, just relax, right? But because he's not done this, how do you say, consistently, right? You're seeing those wheels wanting to learn. Now there's another thing that you're doing, which is you're petting him. I wouldn't pet him right now. Do you know why?
Because I'm rewarding his anxiety.
Yes, yes, good. Touch is a reinforcer, right? So if I go sit and the dog sits, good boy, right? I agree, because yeah, you said sit, he performed the action. But right now your dog is anxious, maybe overstimulated. So when you're touching him right now, you're saying, yes, you should feel this way right now in this setting. Have you ever seen people where the dogs are being reactive and they'll like hold them and they'll pet them and go, it's okay, it's okay. Maybe you've done it yourself? Yeah. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to console, you're trying to relax, but you're telling your dog, fucking go, man. That's what that means.
We joke we're helicopter parents.
Yeah. So you're well-intentioned, just like everybody else is. However, the way he interprets it and receives it is very different than what you're intending, okay? I used to do protection training many years ago. That's where we're training a dog to be aggressive to a human or an attacker on command, okay? We put the dog on a harness because harnesses help create agitation and frustration. We have a person who's an agitator acting suspicious while the other person is holding the dog. When the dog starts to growl or bark, guess what we do?
You're rewarding and telling
Good, yeah, good. Yes, good, right? We want more of it. Okay, so that's what people are unintentionally doing with their dogs, is they're teaching them, yes, you should bark when you see dogs. Does that make sense? So I'm not opposed to you giving your dog affection. I'm just opposed to when you're giving your dog affection. Okay?
So we've been definitely, like, if he does behave well when I see another dog, I usually give him a treat.
He does a treat thing, and it does work.
Like if he sees another dog walk by and he sits, and gets the deep stare, but no barking, no blah, blah, blah.
But you know what you're rewarding there.
Yeah, the stare.
Yes. Yes. Whenever you add the positive, super simple. Just go, what I'm feeding or petting right now, do I want it to happen again? Does that make sense? Do I want to see this again? So like right now, this stare. If I wanted to see that again, I'd feed it. Does that make sense? I'd praise it. Now, let's say Axel is calm on the couch, and you go, I want to see that again, and you go to pet him. That would make sense, because you're rewarding the calmness. Now, but the other part of that is if you're going, oh my God, Axel, oh my God, you're so cute when you're calm on the couch, oh my God. What are you creating?
Sorry, first thing is.
What are you creating there when you pet him like that? Like, let's say he's calm on the couch, and you want to pet him, but you're going, oh my God, Axel, you're so cute, oh my God, when you're calm. What are you creating now?
Being on the couch.
But what are you creating?
Oh.
The reward for
The reward, excitement.
Okay.
Because you're, oh my God, right? So people are rewarding the dog's calmness, but then they're excited. Now they're just creating excitement. And they go, no, like if you're going to record the calmness reward, good. Calm, passive, praise. Does that make sense? And there's a time and place for excitement. You're playing fetch with your dog, fucking be excited, right? You're doing fun tricks and roll over and stuff, be excited, right? But that should be a small portion of the time. People are almost always excited, like when they leave, all right, buddy, I'll see you later. They come home, hey, buddy, I missed you. Then when they're interacting with them in other places, right? It's constant. And that's also why overstimulation is a problem, because the owner is creating the excitement of the stimulation, and they don't know how to turn it off. That's the important thing, is you have to learn how to turn it off. So I can do both. I can turn it on, I can turn it off. Most people just know how to turn it on. And that's why a lot of dogs have problems. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Questions? So, and you can see here, like I mentioned earlier, like he's lying down more and more and more because you're removing options. You're saying, we're not sniffing right now, we're not exploring right now, we're just having a conversation. I always tell my clients, your dog's energy should reflect your energy, right? It's like right now, we're having a conversation, we're calm. So he should be calm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Any questions?
No, I think we've done. I think we've been bad with the treats when we see other dogs.
Sure, yeah. And you're just trying to solve a problem. And so the theory is we have, oh, what the hell? It's sorry, neighbors. It's counter conditioning. Counter conditioning is when your dog goes under stress, right? Let's say he sees a dog goes under stress. Is you're using the food to make him feel better about the stressor. They say you're trying to change the dog's underlying response. So when they see the stressor, the dog goes, good things happen when the stressor happens. The problem with that is, one, if the dog is paying attention to the food, dogs can't think of two things at once. He literally goes, dog. And you go, hey, buddy, I got a treat for you. He goes, food. And now this is the mind switches. Or the dog's here, food. Yeah, sure, I'll take that, thanks. So keep staring at the dog and I'll be fed. Does that make sense? So the counter conditioning thing also has to be done like rapid fire. You have to go feed, 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 right? And you have to do controlled context, and it's literally like step by step by step by step. It's like very slow, okay? It's not realistic. Let's say you're trying to like clip his nails and stuff. Sure, right? Because I want the dog to learn to like having their nails clipped, right? But more often than not, when it comes to other dogs and stuff or seeing other dogs, it won't work. What you need is he learns barking at dogs is bad, consequence. If I don't bark at dogs, I get fed. Does that make sense? And it depends. If he's looking at a dog and he's calm and passive, ears are back, eyes are soft, feed. Because now that's what I'm rewarding. But if he's like this, even if I don't have the barking, I'm still rewarding the stare. And the stare is like the 1 to 2 of the reactivity. Okay?
His stare, he can get stare at a distance, especially if it's head on. Like,
Sure,
You
yeah.
can see a
He
dog
doesn't
like
like
2
his eye level.
blocks away, and he'll get the creep.
Yep. So you can see the slow escalation, okay? And that's a pretty big threshold. And by threshold, I mean like, when does the dog go become concerned or under stress? So, 20 feet away, like they'll ignore dogs, and 20 feet away they'll look. Now you have my attention, right? As we work with the reactivity, it'll go from 2 blocks away to a block away to half a block away to a quarter of a block away till like it passes by and nothing happens.
Why is it so bad on the leash? Like,
Because, that's a good question. Very common one. So we have 4 primary danger responses, right? Stress responses. Do you know what they are? Fight, flight.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, avoidance submission, right? Or freeze is another one. I just refer to fight, flight, avoidance submission. The first two are fight or flight. Okay. On the leash, which one of those is removed?
Flight.
Yes. Which leaves?
Right.
Fight. So I know he's social off leash, right? So off leash because one, that flight response is available to him, but also remember, reactivity is a symptom of a problem, right? So reactivity can be frustration based. Like for example, let's say with puppies, we see it a lot where the puppy wants to say hi to the dog, the owner won't allow the puppy because they don't want them to annoy the dog or vaccination stuff, whatever, right? So the puppy's getting pulled away, so they're getting frustrated because they can't get to the dog they want to say hi to. So they start being reactive, right? Like reactivity doesn't necessarily mean aggression, right? Because you just said like, yeah, if he's off leash, he's social. On leash, he's reactive, right? So reactivity doesn't mean the dog's aggressive. Reactivity, again, is a symptom of something. Is it frustration? Is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it because the dog just doesn't like dogs? Is it overstimulation? So overstimulation puts a dog under stress because the brain, again, cannot relax. It's constantly like this. So when you go outside and then you add another stressor, the dog will go over what we call a threshold. The dog goes, okay, I've had enough. I got to do something about it now. Does that make sense? So when we do formal conditioning and heel training, we bring the dog down to a 0 in terms of escalation and stimulation. So if a dog's at a 0-1, it takes more to get to a 10, right? So you already told me he stares 2 blocks away. That's 2 or 3. Then he crouches and crawls. Now we're going 4 or 5. Then he might hackles going up. Now we got 7. You see that escalation, right? Whereas when you slow the brain down, it's even slower than that. I get some dogs that's 0 to 10. Like there is no 0, 1, 2, 4, 5. It's just 0, 10. But then once we condition them correctly and we pacify the brain, it goes 0, 1, 2, 4. Like you start to see more of the escalation until eventually we can nitpick at it and eventually the dog learns just not to do it. Okay? Other questions? Is all making sense so far?
Yeah.
So in terms of what I would recommend and like length of time and stuff, I don't think you need to upgrade your prong collar, okay? Because chances are we might just bypass it completely, okay? So if in the future after the training and stuff, you just like to have the prong collar to give you that extra leverage with appropriate e-collar conditioning, I think you'd be fine with that one. If you'd like to just upgrade it and get a more formal prong collar, then you're free to do so. But I would say you have to upgrade your remote collar, okay? Because my theory of training is shaped around that particular brand, okay? Because I work with 127 levels, and with this I'm limited down to 21. Does that make sense? In terms of length of time and cost, 3 is the shortest I'd recommend, and that's solely for the heel exercise and the reactivity stuff.
3 classes.
3 classes, 3 1-hour classes. That's the shortest. That's just walk my dog, address the reactivity. That's all it's about, okay? We have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. The 6th class program, we could do the reactivity stuff, leash walking, which has to be done. I know you asked about going to a restaurant, right? We can get that done because it takes a class. So we got 2 on heel, 1 maybe on reactivity if it continues to be a problem, 1 on stationary control, which is place command, which is what you want for the restaurant, which leaves 2, I would suggest going over and reviewing recall, okay, which takes a class, which leaves 1 class as a variable, okay? If everything's going great, because your dog has a foundation, okay, I just don't think it's clear enough. I'm just gonna clear it up. So I can get more done in that shorter amount of time. So 3 is really just like, I get clients that just want to walk their dog. They like, I don't care about anything else. I just want to walk my dog and not deal with reactivity. I'll get it done in 3 classes, okay? 6 typically is walk my dog, reactivity, and recall. But because you guys already have a foundation, I can get another thing in there, which would be stationary control, okay? The 9 and 12-week programs are for clients that want a fully off-leash trained dog, sit, stay, down, come, place, heel, like all 6 commands built to an off-leash level, so it's a longer program, okay? Up and down on the butt. Whereas for you guys, you said, I want to walk this dog in peace in the city. I'd like to go to restaurants with this dog. And the next thing was with recall, he'd also have the ability to be off leash pretty much anywhere because you're not having to worry about, is my dog going to take off on me or anything like that. Okay? Question on any of that stuff.
It's just hard to believe it'll only take.
I know.
He's smart though. He's really smart.
It's not about intelligence. It's about, so the reason why it's so quick is when I train, I teach dogs in a way that they instinctively understand. Most training is in a way that the human understands that the dog has to learn to understand. We can think up to here, dogs can only think up to here, right? So I've made the training down here on the dog's level because the owner, the human, can think all through this. It's very, very simple, okay? You're not the first person, you're not gonna be the last person. They're like, really? You'll get it done? I go, yeah. I was like, because I train in the way that they understand. And I know what tools the dog needs. So we had a seminar here a few weeks ago. And the biggest problem that I saw with those people is 80% of them had the wrong collars. So there was a lady with the Rottweiler was probably 120, 130 pounds. And he was on a collar meant for a 70-pound dog and under. That dog was over by 50 pounds. And throughout the seminar, they just kept going up and up and up. And you would see this crazy contraction. Dog didn't care about it. And I told her, because she asked me, she's like, what's your opinion? I was like, you need to upgrade that collar. I was like, that collar is not the appropriate collar. And she's like, oh, but it was free. I go, I don't care. I was like, it's not working. Why even if it's free, there's no value because it's not working. So what's the, and you're wasting all this money on training. The training's not going to work until you have the appropriate collar. Okay? But yeah, 6 classes. And this is if you're following the instructions. Obviously, if you're not following through or anything like that, we're not going to get anywhere. Okay? So I always tell my clients, I can only take you as far as you're willing to go. Okay? I get some pretty severe cases. My worst case last year was a 20-ish to 30-ish pound dog. One of the worst cases of reactivity I've had in 15 years of training dogs. Okay? When I saw the dog, I put that dog on the dog meant for, like that I'm going to recommend for him, 70-pound plus. And the owner didn't question it. She just went with what I said. It took me until the 4th to 5th class to finally find the solution for the reactivity. Okay? Because I have to try everything. We always start low, we work our way up until we find the solution. That dog ended up needing a fully maxed out collar meant for a Rottweiler to stop the behavior. So once we got to that point, I said, rinse and repeat for 2 weeks. If you don't see progress, email me. Because there's no point in having a class on this behavior when I can just email you the answer. She didn't question it. She followed my instructions. By the 5th class, 2 weeks later, we curbed the reactivity. Okay, I have her video. If you'd like to see it, Tina can send it to you. I did kind of like a in-depth explanation using footage and everything to explain the process and like why. So have you ever heard the saying, it's not about the dog in the fight, but the fight in the dog? Yeah. That dog, her name's Georgia, is like the perfect like dog form of that analogy. Little dog, reactivity of a 130-pound dog. Like it was bad. It was like 2 blocks away, not staring, freaking out. And then the other thing is, depending on when you want to get started, right now because it's rainy season, it's kind of on and off, we train here. It won't impact your training because clients always wonder like, if I train inside, is this going to impact my success? I go, no. The way that I teach, as long as you're following the instructions, we're going to get there. Otherwise, once we're past the rainy season, we do train out of Oz Park. Okay, it's the busiest park in Chicago. It's just north of Gold Coast. It's probably like, I would say 10 to 15 minute drive from you guys. Okay, it's not far. And people like it because there's skateboarders, strollers, dogs, off-leash dogs, baseball games, tennis games. Like there's all this stuff going on in the environment, and we train real time there. Okay, I don't need to touch the dog. You just show up with your dog and your tools. I coach you through everything. Super, super rare that I have to touch or work with the dog. So it puts all the experience in the owner's hands. Okay. Last thing that we get asked a lot is, when does the collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So that means every time you go on a walk with Axel, he'd have the collar on. It doesn't mean that you're always using it. It means it's simply present. Okay. Clients always ask, and they're like, well, if you're training so good, why do I still need it long term? I go, because just like with humans, you guys go on the expressway? No? You do? Do you go the speed limit?
No.
You see a squad car, what happens?
You pulled over.
You slow down. Or pull over if you did pull you, but you would slow down. Yeah, because you don't want to get that ticket. Yeah, right? That's what we call opportunistic behavior, okay? Opportunistic behavior is if there's no threat of consequence or if I can avoid it, we're going to press that boundary. Same thing for the dog, right? If the collar's not on and he sees a dog and he goes, what happens if I'm reactive today? Can you stop me? He's going to be reactive. Okay, so again, it's nothing about my skills as a trainer or whatever. It's simply opportunistic behavior. Okay, but you shouldn't have to always use the button. If you're using the button all the time, that tells me you're doing something incorrectly. Okay, almost always it's the owner playing it too low. Almost always. Okay, it's either dog wasn't conditioned correctly, which is not me, that's previously, or two, the owner's too low in the collar. Those are the biggest factors that I see with that inhibit an owner's success. Okay, so like for Georgia, if that owner was not willing to do 127 corrections like I told her to for those 2 weeks, we would have never fixed that case. Okay,
So how's Georgia now?
she's good. She's good. In the video, you'll see like I didn't see her for like 3 months, and she's like, reactivity has been great. You know, it's following through each and every time, but the owner gives the dog too much opportunity to try to avoid the correction. That's what holds them back. Does that make sense? Other questions?
No, I think
So for now, until we start something, like, should we just avoid?
Avoid and do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just do what you've been doing. You're not going to make it worse. Okay? Avoid and or do what you were doing before. And then once you get on the system, I would say the second class, by the end of the second class, if we don't see a chunk of it done by the first class. I get clients that come in the first class, they come in the second class, like, Jesse, there's been no reactivity. I go, good. And sometimes it takes 4 to 5, but that's like I get like a handful of dogs like that a year. Most dogs I get done at the latest by the second or third class. Every now and then I get one that's a little bit longer. We also get a portion of dogs that's by the first class. The reactivity is done. So every case is different. Okay.
you're able to dine out.
Other questions?
That's it.
Last thing, just as FYI for you guys, dogs that we've trained are welcome to board here. They're not required to do daycare on a regular basis or anything like that. He's also welcome to do daycare if that's a future service that you'll need. But we get dogs that come in from like the suburbs and stuff. And I don't expect them to come here once a week to bring their dogs to daycare to board with us. So because they've trained with us, they can just like a handful of dogs from the suburbs that come like a few times a year and they don't have to worry about that stuff. So just as FYI.
Okay.
Okay?
Do you have a nice outdoor area for them to play, or?
We have an outdoor area. It's, I don't know if it's nice. It's just concrete. I'd like to make it turf and nice in the future. Everything that we do, like you can see in that top right camera, is in that room. They do duration work, treadmill time, and they play if they're social. And they do decompression time in the kennel.
He loves to play.
If you go on our Instagram, you can like see, like we put videos and stuff, and we do like little videos going like, this is a rotation or whatever. We do hourly rotation, so every hour on the hour dogs are doing something different. And it just makes sure the day is moving. Every dog gets their activities for the day and all that stuff. So
Yeah. But he used to love daycare.
yeah.
We'd watch him all day on daycare.
Oh yeah,
Well, yeah, we went to be
did
for like
daycare
some
for a little
minutes.
bit.
I see.
To sit there and stare at the camera.
Yeah.
Do our work.
He did, well, we got kicked out of daycare.
Well, one daycare, the other one we didn't.
Yeah, I have dogs here that are kicked out of other daycares too. I take with a grain of salt because, like we have a dog here. Her name is JoJo. She's a Rottie. She's a Rottie, and she got kicked out of her previous daycare because she bit a dog in the tail, and she's social. And when I socialize her here, she is a gladiator in terms of her play style. So I'm like, that's why you bit a dog in the tail. Like it probably just became too much, and then she got overwhelmed, and then.
He tries to push other dogs down by the back of their neck.
Yeah, so that would not be allowed because that will trigger something.
That's his problem.
Yeah. As I said to us, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's it. Do you want to start with the 6th class or 3 classes?
You don't have to decide now. You can mull it over, talk about it.
Okay.
We don't prorate programs, just heads up. Okay, so if you did 3 and you wanted to add another 3, you'd pay the same price.
Okay.
Whereas 6 up front is it's a reduced price. And then like let's say we end up using 5 classes, it's a year after your program, you're like everything's great, we have this one class sitting there. We've converted it to credit in the past for clients and they can use it towards a boarding stay or whatever, it's not a problem because it's a service for a service. And then Tina will email you the information, and then she'll handle all the booking stuff and everything like that. Okay? Anything else?
So when you're in here working towards reactivity, do you bring other dogs out?
We
to
can,
test? Okay.
if needed. Yeah, it's not, I know it's hard to believe, like, why is it, how is it that you can train the dog but not even need a dog? It's because the training itself is good. Now, I did, actually, it's funny, I did 2 in a row last week, and it was because the owner was insecure. They hadn't had any issues with the dog, but they wanted to do controlled context because they needed the experience.
We'll probably need that.
That's fine.
Because I'm at the point now, like, if I see another dog, I'm like,
Oh, and actually another thing that we can cover is like if you wanted to socialize him with another dog on leash, how to do it correctly. Okay. Now, this only pertains to dogs he would see again. It doesn't account. It's not the random dogs in the street. That's a separate thing. Okay. We could probably get that done in 6 if you wanted, just like the, how would you say, assurance or reassurance that we would get it done. You could do 9, and like I said, if it's too much, because it is still cheaper per class even with 9, and you have like 3 classes left over, 2 classes left over, we just convert them to credit. You can use it towards.
so the expectation at the end, like the outcome for him, if he was on leash and those dogs passed by, what would be the expected behavior? He just
Minds his business.
just doesn't
Yep.
even look at them.
I mean, he can look at them. He just can't blow up at them.
Doesn't lunge, doesn't bark,
Yeah.
doesn't stare.
But there would be no interaction.
Really.
Yeah. So think of it this way. When you guys are out in the world, how many people do you talk to?
It depends.
Around here,
Like random people,
not around here.
right?
In Virginia, you talk to more random people.
Sure. It's a different place here. Yeah, I get it, right? But you see what I mean there is humans, for the most part, don't talk to random, unless it's like the cashier, the gas pump guy, right? The police officer. Like they're random, but there's reasons for that interaction. But like if you're just walking, you're like, hey, guy, they're going to look at you like, talking to me, right? Same thing for dogs. But there's an unrealistic expectation that dogs should interact. Does that make sense? So that's why I don't hold that stuff against them. If a dog came up to here and he became reactive, I go, yeah, because the dog was up to here in his personal space. Would you like a human up to here in your personal space? The thing is, you wouldn't punch the person. You'd probably tell them like, hey, back off. But if they continue to pursue, you most likely might have to get physical to protect yourself. Dogs are more primal. They don't understand there's a thing of 911 to dial and somebody will show up, is supposed to show up. In the city of Chicago, just heads up, they don't show up a whole lot of the time, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yeah, so if socialization and learning how to socialize him, properly, I could probably get it done in 9. It would just depend on how the reactivity goes. I'm expecting it's gonna be pretty straightforward. If you wanted the assurance that we just get as much covered as possible behaviorally, you could do 9. And then if it ended up as overkill and you have classes left over, like I said, we can convert it to credit. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just be, like, once we're done, like, I still don't quite understand, like, how we would approach walking him.
So
When another dog is coming straight at us, like, and I get you'll cover it in the training.
Uh-huh.
That part makes me, like, nervous, like, if he does, like, lunge.
sure, there's a process.
Yeah.
There's a process because I have to build up your confidence.
Yeah.
There's 2 points. I have to train 2 animals here. I'm training your dog and I'm training you.
I'm part of the training.
Yeah. Sometimes confidence comes months after the training is done because you need to see it. You need to see success after success after success. And I get clients that are traumatized. I get clients whose dogs have attacked other dogs and they're very much traumatized. So they're very avoidant. They're very cautious, right? They're very anxious.
Yeah.
And then over time, they're like, oh, Jesse, I'm so much more relaxed now because I've had months of non-issue. And then the other part is, again, he's not going to be perfect. 1 reactive moment in 6 months, that's pretty fucking good. But you're going to be confident in like, yeah, he became reactive that 1 time in 6 months, but I stopped it like that. Easy peasy. I teach you to live and handle your dog. We got a dog coming here, by the way.
Well, yeah, she just-
And be educated like I am. Okay, so what you're gonna do is I'm gonna have you come over here. Yeah. See if we catch it on camera. Also reactive. Hey guys, we got a test for you. So we're gonna give a pre-tap here. All right. Heel in, we got another reactive dog here. What's the number per piece set to?